Welcome everyone to Community-Led Climate Solutions Grants Program Grantseeker Workshop for 2026. I'm the Partnerships Program Manager at FRRR, and Jane Crane will also be speaking today, and she's the Grants Officer at FRRR. I'd like to firstly acknowledge the country that I'm coming to you from today, which is Yuin Nation on the south coast of New South Wales. I'm very grateful for the Walbunja people and their care for country in Dalmini, where I live, and the surrounding region. And we'd just like to more broadly acknowledge all the lands that you're coming from today across Australia, and the traditional custodians of country and their care for this country. We pay our respect to elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So today we'll give a little bit of an overview about FRRR. You're probably familiar with FRRR, but just to give some people that may not be, and also update you on some of our new strategic directions. Then we'll talk obviously about the Community-Led Climate Solutions Grant Program, which is why you're here today. And after we finish that session, we'll have some questions that can be really specific about that grant program, any project ideas or specific things that you want to kind of clarify through the presentation is a great time. And as I've said, please use the chat to put your questions or any comments in as I'm presenting, and we can go to that during that time as well. Then Jane will lead you on a Grantseeker workshop, just more broadly talking about, applying for grants, some of those tips and tricks, particularly based on our own experience at FRRR in regards to how we assess what we're looking for and the best way to put yourself forward. Again, there'll be time for some questions. We'll offer you some resources. As I said, this recording will be available 48 hours after the presentation, and we'll also send you the slide deck, and any questions that may have come up, we'll see if we need to clarify anything and just support you in your applications if you're going forward. A little bit about FRRR. We've been around since 2000, and we are the only national foundation specifically focused on ensuring social and economic strength in remote, rural and regional areas of Australia. And we work with government, philanthropy and community purposes and investments to try and realise that goal. We are just moving into a 3-year strategic plan where we're really interested in unlocking opportunity for remote, rural and regional communities that, we know are at the forefront of a lot of disruption at the moment, both through climate, our transition to renewable energy as a nation, and many other challenges as you know, a really key part of the country, but also one that can struggle with being under-resourced and being challenged in understanding what's actually going on in your community and what support you need. So you'll get a chance to have a look a bit more closely at this strategic slide when we send you through the deck, and we do welcome any further comments and questions with regards to that. Community-Led Climate Solutions is one of FRRR's grant programs, and as I said, we're really focused on the idea of the disproportionate impact of the effects of a changing climate and the associated energy and industry transitions. What we understand and appreciate is that where you are in your communities, you have the knowledge and ideas to implement local solutions that can contribute to risk mitigation and adaptation of your lives and livelihoods to thrive in a changing climate environment. We're really looking in this program to support projects that may be reducing carbon-intensive practices, looking at some of the, circular economy, reuse, recycling practices, and also understanding, the environmental conservation and the impacts on social, environmental and economic outcomes for communities by navigating this. We're fortunate that we have partnered with collaborative donors to support this, who really believe in your ability in your communities to make a change the way it's required. So in round 4, our donor partners are the Paul Ramsay Foundation, Elders Insurance in partnership with QBE, the Sydney Maya Fund, and also Hand Heart Pocket, which is the charity of the Freemasons Queensland. Our overall goal in this grant program is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and address impacts of climate change and sustainable environmental, social and economic outcomes in remote, rural and regional areas. We really appreciate that we're talking to many volunteer-run organisations, small community organisations in small communities, and so we're not looking for massive greenhouse gas emission changes, but we all know that everything that happens can make a difference in that area. And so that's, we like to have that as one of the key tenets of this program that we're working towards. And we can understand and then share those outcomes more broadly as we encourage more people to take up and adopt new practices. So this grant program is open to not-for-profit organisations seeking to implement a project that addresses and mitigates the impact of changing climate on their community in rural, remote or regional Australia. We include these definitions for this grant program because we really appreciate that this is a very complex space, and so just to be clear, when you're kind of understanding how you want to align with this grant purpose, and so it's really handy to check in on these definitions and see if they make sense to you and how they make sense to your project. In 2026, we have $400,000 in grant funds available, and the grants are up to $20,000. We will support a broad range of community-led climate solutions, and we have 3 main objectives, and we're looking for you to at least achieve one of them in your project. So either driving engagement, education, leadership, so this can be through events, activities, getting people to learn practical ways, film screenings. There's several examples already of projects that have occurred along that line. Activating locally led opportunities to advance clean energy transition, climate adaptation or decarbonisation, and circular economies. This can be small recycling projects. It can be looking at energy use, more broadly in the community, and helping people to understand how they can adopt ways that are more decarbonising, reducing the use of other fossil fuels. And also the third one is supporting just transitions. So when we talk about just transitions, and I'll just go quickly to that definition there, we want to ensure that no one is left behind in the transition to low carbon and environmentally sustainable economies and societies. So, we're really looking at projects that have a broad community benefit and provide access to a lot of people, or as many people, and also enable more people that may possibly not be homeowners or in other ways may be left out of the transition or not able to access some of the benefits, to actually access them through this grant program. It is about charitable outcomes, so it's really important to kind of emphasise and remember that. The grant program's open now, and the applications are due by 5 p.m. on the 12th of March, which is a Thursday. We work on that 5 p.m, which is Victorian, Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So just important to remember if you're in other states, this requirement for when the program actually closes to applications. So as I said, we can fund a broad range of projects, and look, most of this information is in the guidelines. But, we really understand that local activation through events and activities is a great way to connect people and engage them and also expose them to new ideas or ways of learning. Projects where you're actually planning or looking at feasibility or trialling new ideas that will maximise the opportunities for the community in the future. We're very interested in understanding that. Projects that intersect climate change adaptation with health preparedness, resilience, or address equity, inclusion, or affordability. We've got a great example from one of our past grant programs where an organisation is designing blinds that will be going onto social housing, really looking at the impact of increasing heat in communities and how that might impact older people living in social housing and reduce both the energy bills there, but also support that idea of health and preparedness. We're interested in projects that include First Nations land and sea management practices to support climate solution, regenerative ag practices for land and sea that support climate solutions, and sustainable agricultural and food system initiatives. This is quite a broad range, and I think the really important thing is when you're looking at those activities is just understanding how they are a climate solution, and I suppose maybe going back to those definitions and seeing if you're decarbonising or if you're looking at carbon sequestration, how that might change things. With things like sustainable agricultural and food systems, we know that increasing heat may change local food opportunities, and it may require different mechanisms to come in to support growth in different times, or increasing the biodiversity in a region to support better growing outcomes. So, as I said, very broad, and do encourage you to look back at past projects. We've funded a really diverse range. When it comes to reducing, reusing and recycling waste or implementing circular economy activities, there's, many small communities are doing this in a way, just merely through their op shops or through their, collect and earn systems that may be in place. To really stand out, we want to look at what's innovative and how you're engaging the whole community in this as a climate solution to support them and to engage them, I suppose, in the discussion. We are looking to prioritise projects for remote, rural and regional communities experiencing disadvantage or more vulnerable to climate change impact. This is about community-led climate solutions, so we really want to see that it is local community not-for-profit organisations that will be delivering. We understand sometimes more sophisticated or innovative projects may be looking to work outwardly with other partners who can bring in expertise, but really making sure that it's a priority for those communities. We're looking for projects that can deliver social or economic benefits in addition to those environmental outcomes. We're interested in the evidence base that supports the program design and the strategic planning for actually how that project is delivered. And also really looking at a diverse community members and stakeholders being involved that once again demonstrates to us, that engagement with community, that ability to support more people to be involved and ultimately benefit from the project's outcomes. As I said, the key project objective is to deliver like a climate solution outcome for broad community benefits. One of the things that we are kind of very clear on and we do encourage you to think about is how the installation of solar panels or the establishment of a community garden is more than just an operational benefit that supports efficiencies or reduces costs, or is a community garden has real social outcomes. We want to understand just elevating it to the idea of a climate solution. What are you combating in the challenges of increasing heat or other climate change challenges? through this, and how are you engaging the community? For example, we have had projects where solar panels are being installed, and a part of that project is engagement of other community organisations to understand the outcomes of that, to kind of educate more broadly and encourage a broader adoption and support more peer learning in that space. And as I said, with community gardens, what are the sustainability and environmental practices that are being implemented in that garden and that are being educated more broadly across the community? Similarly, for food security initiatives, we need to evidence the objectives of mitigating climate impacts on food supply and climate solutions outcomes, including the reducing emissions. With the emissions reduction, and I think this also goes to where we're interested in the evidence base that might be a driver or a supporter of your project. You can maybe refer to a project example from overseas or somewhere else, and the way they measure their emissions reductions or expected outcomes of an activity. We're not expecting you to have really expensive equipment on board, to actually do this in a really defined way. Just the idea that it's being considered, and we can look at it more broadly in that way, and you've got a context that you're drawing on to support the way you're delivering that project. As I said, community-led is always an FRRR priority, and so we're really conscious of ensuring that this project is important to the community. We're also conscious that climate solutions, and particularly in communities where there is transition going on and change in either new renewables actually coming into an area that hasn't been impacted before, or shifts in the dynamics around moving from fossil fuels to renewables in an area, can be really sensitive. And we appreciate that it's not always easy to onboard the community, and there may be challenges there. So we're definitely interested in supporting you to advocate and work with your community, and also work with other stakeholders to I suppose, shift the conversation, engage communities, and look for positives in the way we all move forward with regards to this. There are several areas that we can't fund through this program. So I encourage you to please always review this. It's on the guidelines. Areas of federal, state and local governments. We understand, well, federal and state, we probably won't be funding for really anything, but local government, we understand, are funded for specific requirements and needs of communities, but also sometimes they are the best body within a small community to auspice another organisation or deliver something that's really unique that they aren't necessarily being funded from in a broader sense. So we will definitely consider innovative projects from local government, but any areas that we see that are directly their responsibility, such as the delivery of, supply of water or those kind of things, wouldn't necessarily be funded through this project. We're very much interested in building organisations' capacity. So project wages, resources that are directly related to a project, consultancy, they're definitely costs that we will consider, but core operational costs can't be paid for that sustain the organisation more broadly in their operations. This is about local solutions, so overseas travel and overseas projects aren't eligible. Prizes, gifts, trophies or awards aren't eligible for funding through this. We suggest if you're doing an event, you look at a sponsor or other means of funding if you want to incentivise or, acknowledge other people's work in a way to actually manage that type of resource. This isn't, as I said, we are interested in how you can advocate within your community and work with them, but this isn't about political lobbying. This is about broad community benefit. So projects that primarily benefit private business, sole trader or private interests won't be considered. We are interested in biodiversity, environment, conservation, and the way climate solutions that can support those. But the projects can't be solely focused on animal welfare. There needs to be a social and human outcome with regards to the benefits there. The encouragement or advancement of sport, recreation and social activities are not considered charitable activities under Australian law. We do appreciate that football clubs, cricket clubs, netball clubs, sporting recreation reserves are often the heart and soul of communities and where many activities take place, not just for sporting purposes or to advance sport. We just need to understand how the activity, what it's about and where the broad community benefit is if you are coming from a sporting body and are looking to implement a climate solution. I think it's a really good example. Many of these organisations would like to put solar panels on their roofs to increase their efficiency. This needs to be much broader than just supporting that operational outcome for that football or netball club to achieve. So just if you are coming from that kind of organisation, just consider that broader community benefit and how you can tell us and demonstrate that through a project. Okay, eligibility. I think we've already run through this, but not-for-profit organisations are very broad. You do not need to be a DGR or a deductible gift recipient to actually apply. You do need to have either an incorporation certificate or an ABN. All requirements are in the application form. Individuals, sole traders or private or commercial businesses cannot apply. The organisation that is not a legal entity. Other reasons for eligibility is if the application is submitted without mandatory information. There is an outstanding FRRR grant report. So we do encourage you to make sure nothing's outstanding in your organisation. We appreciate there can be quite a bit of changeover that happens. So just do a check on anything that may not have been acquitted properly in its due date, and contact us if you need more details on a project that you're not sure about. Also retrospective. These grants are for projects that will occur from July 2026 through to July 2027. So a 12-month period. We won't fund any expenses that have already been incurred for the project. It needs to be in that time period that the funding will be spent. So I've got a few examples here, and what we'd like to do is just run through them quickly to really look at, that need, opportunity and outcome. We've tried to look, I suppose, sometimes at, innovative ones. This is interesting because when we think of community and we think of local community, we often think geographically, but this is a really good example of the idea of what is a community, and how do you engage them for broader benefit. And this is about regional and rural engagement. And with this perspective, there was the idea that people that can be really influential in the climate space in regards to behavioural change are tradespeople. But there was a need to engage them, particularly, owner, self kind of run smaller businesses. So the opportunity was to conduct peer-led educational sessions and build awareness of building materials and engage people more broadly. As an outcome, we had the Surfers for Climate ran events, engaging busy tradies, a really good example of, identifying what were the times and what were the incentives that would bring these people into chat. And there's been some great outcomes with regards to people gaining knowledge and also making contacts to build that knowledge. This is an example, I think, of something, that's a bit different. This is a big project, building a grid in remote Australia. But what kind of they came to us for was the Nagata cooperative who are ultimately going to be running this grid when it's up and running, is that there was a local skills gap, and that this workforce, this local Indigenous workforce, needed training and skills, and that wasn't really built into the bigger budget. So this is where funding can come in enable that just transition, to support them developing those skills and capabilities to actually self-determine and manage their own project, ultimately when the grid's in place. This is a good example of a council project. The adaptation game is a game developed by a commercial business, but they've been working with councils across Australia. And the idea is that, the council engages different community members and starts to strengthen resilience through neighbourhood connections and really identifying those risks, but also enabling that connectivity locally so that you can address some of those real risks of vulnerability and also, build skills and local knowledge of places of risk and places of safety. And one of the great things about this was seeing a train the trainer outcome. So there was great sustainability in this project with regards to once it was implemented by the council and engaging people, it could continue to build and these sessions would continue to run and there would be a local, method of adaptation for people to reference and build on. And finally, the Gippsland Climate Change Network. Obviously, Gippsland is an area that is transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energies, and there's some real challenges there with regards to people understanding this opportunity for them. So they were looking to engage and foster more community confidence to build knowledge and support people to connect more positively. They were using new tools such as VR technology for young people to really bring those work opportunities to life and more broadly engage the community in what those work opportunities were about. So I've got questions now. I'm going to bring our screen back to the shared screen and have a look at the chat. Jane, have you looked at the chat at all? Kim, would you like to, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to confirm the point that was made about the funding's not for private businesses, companies, sole traders, etc. But then the tradie example that was given from the surfers, a industry body as such, like similar to the surfers, if it was like an educational type program that was for the benefit of those businesses in a sustainability outcome. So let me pluck something like a circular economy one. That's in line with the grant program.
The only problem is that industry body can't, well, I suppose it would be a not-for-profit industry body.
Yeah, yep. That's what I was thinking, very similar to the surfers one. There's a couple of opportunities for upskilling of remote regional communities here in Tasmania. But it would need to have an organisation bring them together and it needs to be trusted to have those connections. And that's where I'm thinking an industry body that's a not-for-profit would be the ideal candidate to partner with on that.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely could be feasible. I think we just need to, I suppose, look down, at the long tail in regards to the outcomes of the community benefit and make sure that the benefit isn't specifically sitting within those businesses
that are providing the training.
Yep. So that just because with the tradies one, we were seeing that they wouldn't necessarily benefit, financially from having new knowledge, but by working differently, they would ultimately have an outcome there.
Yeah, got you. And type of things that organise that not-for-profit, what can they claim in the actual from the funds? Like, is it engaging specialists to give presentation?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, great.
Yeah, we've funded 1 or 2 land care type opportunities, and supporting local landowners and that with regards to regenerative farming. So, yeah, there's definitely examples there when we see that broader community benefit, and also understand those communities. We understand that more remote communities or don't have as much access as in greater inner regional where hubs are and those kind of things. So the importance of actually extending that support there, or bringing them somewhere where they can learn more. Ayushi?
Hi, thank you. I'm with a recently established youth organisation called the World Food Forum. We focus on sustainable food systems and agricultural transitions across Australia. Given that we are a national chapter, would you suggest we focus on one community where we have where we have our team to focus on, or is a national youth perspective also eligible in terms of projects?
Yeah, look, I would suggest you focus on a particular, 1 or 2 communities that are in the eligible area, remote, rural or regional areas. We find that sometimes national projects, they are also accessible by metro, beneficiaries, and it's really about our remit with regards to supporting, communities in remote, rural and regional Australia. So, and also it's actually understanding the buy-in of that local community on the ground. Sometimes the national can just feel like a bit of a mass activity, and we don't really see those direct outcomes occurring in local communities.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Danielle, I'm just speaking to myself, it just feels funny. That startup in NFP, that sounds like something we would support in regards to building your capability to support climate solutions on a long-term and a more sustainable basis. So I think definitely that project for building your capacity would be eligible. Do we need to have public liability and or professional indemnity when we apply or when we get it? Yes, if you are running a project that requires that, where you'll be engaging with people for events or acting in a way where you would need that type of liability and indemnity, you should have it or demonstrate that you'll be getting it through your application. Climate resilience training for young people. No, look, we've funded projects in schools before. Probably one of the biggest things is our understanding the school engagement there with regards to climate resilience training, and looking at the difference in the project that's being offered and the specific outcomes. In our last round, we funded cool.org for their development of some resources. So, and that goes more broadly to schools. The resources they were developing were specifically on First Nations clean energy development. So that's kind of where there's a specific outcome for remote and rural communities. Okay, I think we've covered all the questions, but I'm very happy to, we've got time afterwards at the end for further questions. Oh, Sarah? Yes.
Hi, thank you. I think when I was looking for the guidelines, I found your website going through the transition to the new grant platform. Is that all stabilized, and are the guidelines now available? Because I couldn't find them last time.
Oh, there shouldn't be an issue there with the guidelines. It is all stabilized now, so
Okay.
we will, let's I don't think there's an issue. We can attach the guidelines when we send out the things if there's any challenges there.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Not a problem at all. Now, Emily from Geelong Sustainability?
Hello, thank you.
Hello.
Just a quick question around, you mentioned that obviously carbon emissions reduction is a big target. If we're looking at things like community education, electrification programs, it's obviously quite hard to quantify outside of, lots of follow-up surveys and trying to, call everyone that came to those things and say, did you upgrade? What did you upgrade from? Which isn't necessarily feasible. I mean, is kind of an estimate of those kind of numbers okay? Or would you want us to focus more on the engagement itself?
It's more about the engagement, Emily. I think, it's really clear what you're trying to achieve. The idea that by changing light bulbs can have this impact on reducing emissions. We're reaching this many, we're seeking to reach this many households. We're hoping for behavioural change in, I don't know, let's say 60% of people, those kind of things. That's how you arrive at a number that makes sense, that helps us go, okay, well, this is a project that ultimately has outcomes for emissions reduction. But no, we're not expecting the surveys for people to change, tell you how many times they've been turning off the lights.
Great. Okay, thank you.
It's a pleasure. Emily, is your hand still up, or are you?
No, it's up again.
That's okay.
Just wondering, one of the slides said that kind of operational costs, including staff, weren't to be funded outside of whether it relates to the program or not. With most of our programs that we do, and particularly speaking to what I think we'll apply for, which is that electrification engagement work, a majority of the cost is for staff. And I guess I know that you guys fund kind of volunteer-led and staff-led organisations, and I just wanted to kind of sense check whether that was looked upon the same, with the same merit.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just working out the proportion of the staff being paid in regards to that. That's being committed to that project.
Yeah, absolutely. It would all be, relevant to the project. But that would be probably the majority of the application of itself, or the budget itself.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Well, look, that's all the questions we have, but I do welcome any further questions to come through on this. I'm going to hand you over to Jane and have her give you all her wisdom. Jane has been a project officer at FRRR for 5 years, Jane?
Coming up 5 years, Danielle, only 4 at the moment. Okay, well, thank you, Danielle. And just for everyone who's still on, this is sort of general grant writing information. So if you feel like, you've been writing grants forever, it's fine to drop out. I won't be offended. So that's all good. So I'll just run through the slides. Danielle, you might have to just move them along for me.
I will do that.
Thank you. Yep, there it is. Yep. So 4 key stages, they're pretty obvious. So 1 is finding the right fit. The next is preparing and planning. The 3rd is writing. And then the 4th is reporting. So if we think about the finding the right fit, basically this is just saying, just really do have a look at each program guidelines. And, if you have the time, the overall FRRR sort of website to get the vibe of what FRRR supports. And then the individual programs have their own objectives. And so just really make sure that your project aligns. Because, we're trying to avoid the square peg in the round hole. We do see people trying to match their project with different programs, and when they really have a neat fit, it just really shouts out at us that it's one for the program that we're working on. And the other thing is, Danielle mentioned it briefly about auspicing. If your organisation doesn't have the right status in terms of either having an incorporation number or an ABN, then you just need to find someone to work with on that, and they'll be your auspicing organisation, and they'll be legally responsible for the grant, but you'll be the project delivery. So if you don't have the required status, just find a buddy and get them to fill out a letter for you and upload that with your application, and that allows you to apply to our grants. And here is just a list of other FRRR grant programs. That the ones on the left are open now and the ones on the right are opening soon. So if you read the guidelines and you're thinking, no, mine's not a climate solution type of project, then just have a look at what else is open at the moment. And coming up, opening, the FRRR e-news is where we let everyone know when we're opening programs. So subscribe to that if you haven't already. Okay, I think that's all on that. The next is the prep and the planning, which obviously is where you put your time in. Yeah, basically it's all about telling the story of your project. It's the who, the where, the why, the how, just all the, all the details basically. So before you launch into filling in the application form, just spend a bit of time of thinking about these questions. Most of FRRR programs do have a similar setup in that they asked who, how, where and why. So yeah, it's good to get them straight. So if we start with the what, that's just all about the applicant telling us what you want to do. And it's in this section that we would hope to see the alignment with the program objectives. Yeah, we just need to know your idea, whether you're solving an issue or building an opportunity, and that you are possibly working with other groups who have similar ideas or interests that support your project idea. And then the why, this is where you tell us why the project is important. It's your chance to tell us about the need in the community or the opportunity that you can see your project will deliver for the community. And it's important that you have that if you have any data to substantiate what you're listing, that you make sure you upload it with your application and refer to it within your application. So yeah, you might be saying, the strategic plan identified by the council mentioned this. Well, just make sure that you, if you can, include that document, just so we can cross-reference basically. So we do like to see a bit of evidence where it is available. Now the who, that's reasonably straightforward. It's like many funders, we value community partnerships, and we also value projects that offer broad community benefits. So tell us about those community partnerships, and also provide evidence by getting those who you're working with and those the project is designed to help to write some letters of support and upload them with your application. So often we get people that say in their application, oh, this project is going to benefit so-and-so, but then they don't go to the trouble to get the so-and-so to write that they really want the project. So we need those letters of support to know that you are delivering to a certain group who are interested in the project. Yeah, and there are templates for the letters of support, but we don't need you to use them. It's basically just having the voice of the community or the voice of your people that you're working with, just letting us know why they value the project. The next is the how, when, and where, which is pretty self-explanatory. If I skip to the when is just nominating a project start and end date, whereas the how is providing the details within the start and the end. The how is allowing you to identify key project stages and nominate tasks, resources, and responsibilities within those dates. And it just indicates to us that you've taken a moment to think through your plan and how you're actually going to make it happen. So yeah, it just shows to us that you've put a bit of thought behind it and you've sort of nutted out roughly when things are going to happen, and you've got a plan basically. It sounds very straightforward, but you'd be surprised how often we do receive applications where they don't provide that detail. It's all just a bit of guesswork, and we just have to, we really do look to see that you have thought this through. And I've just seen your emails on there, Danielle, so that's come up on the screen. So now I'm up to the where. I'm not sure if that's...
This is the next slide. Did you want to go into where, did you? There's nowhere there.
It might be hot. I might have accidentally hidden some slides, but anyway, the where is just the project town location, but it's also where within the township that the project's going to happen. Some projects require some permission and permits, so if that is the case, make sure you do upload them with your application. Now on to the how. This includes the budget, as well as how it's going to happen, but also how is the grant going to be paid for. So how much will your project cost, and where is this money coming from? With costs, we do require quotes for costs greater than $1,000, but we're quite flexible on what these are. They can be a snip from a website or a photo of a text you've received from a contractor giving you an idea of what his or her charge will be. And if quotes can't be obtained, we're also happy to receive costings. If estimate it'll take this many hours, the charge out rate is dollars per this rate. Just give us the costing on how you came to that figure. It's also important if you are, that you do include costs such as freight. Don't sell yourself short. If you know that it's going to cost you X amount of dollars to get the equipment to wherever your project is, make sure you include that. If you're GST registered, or if you're not GST registered, include the GST inclusive costs, because you will have to pay that and you won't be able to claim that back. So just make sure you think about those costs as well. Otherwise, you might find yourself having to get that out of some other pot of money. I think that's all on that slide, Danielle. So the next stage is just writing. So basically that's just transferring all that planning work into the application form. You'll note in the FRRR application forms, there's word limits, so it won't let you go over that. So just try and be as succinct as possible. Give yourself plenty of time. We do get a few called on that last day in a bit of a panic, and we try to relieve the panic, but it helps if you're all sorted and submitting your application not in the 2 hours before the deadline time. What else is in there? I think the rest are pretty straightforward, and I've probably mentioned in those earlier suggestions. The tips, obviously Danielle and I, well, me especially, are not across a lot of the climate language. So if you're using acronyms, please spell them out so we have a better understanding. Again, attach all the documents, and if you can give us evidence, that always strengthens your application. Use facts, not opinions, and letters of support are, one thing we can use to understand the need and the benefit for the communities. Yeah, I think that's about all, and everyone can read what's there. Yeah, so here were just some examples of what the assessment team has asked about previous applications. I think I mentioned already the buildings. If there's things happening on buildings, make sure you have permission and the permits necessary. And if you're saying you've got to recruit participants to attend, it's good to have an understanding how you are reaching those people. It's nice to know that you're hoping to, get to certain groups in the community, but it's even better if we know how that's happening. So yeah, please do give us a good understanding of how everything's going to happen. And then lastly, if you are successful, the process is that we email everyone who applies. If successful, you'll be provided with information on how to access the funds and how to promote. If you're unsuccessful, there is the offer for a chance for feedback. And we do feel that the feedback does allow people to strengthen their application for next time. So yeah, although it might be considered an uncomfortable sort of thing to ask for, I think people who do get value out of understanding why it wasn't as strong as some of the other applications that came in. And the next table is just a list of what makes a strong application, and again, that must have been hidden, was it, Danielle?
Sorry, can't find it.
Yeah, no, I must have pressed the hidden slide a few more times than I realised. But anyway, basically I've talked through it, so I think you've got the gist. And this last one is about the reporting, which is what is required by all grantees that are awarded funding. It's a chance for you to tell your story. FRRR uses it to report back to the donors, so it is a very important document. So we do appreciate it when people spend a bit of time in completing the project reports. Yeah, and just so everyone's aware, if things go off track, that is also fine. We do understand that may happen. We just ask that you let us know of changes, and we have a process that we go through to review the change and most likely approve. It's just good for us to know what's going on and keep us up to date.
So you've got almost another 3 weeks to apply. I wish you all the best of luck, and I thank you so much for attending today.